afternoon, everybody. It is 12:31. We'll go ahead and get our meeting here underway. We'll start with the approval of the minutes. I'm sure Mayor will be on his way here very shortly. So can I get a motion to approve minutes from August 12th, 2025?
So moved.
Support. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye. The motion carries. That will bring us to discussion of strategy. So we've got on the docket today an update on our MOBE policy updates. So we'll welcome Mr. Davis here to the mic to give us an update on where those stand.
Okay, well, good afternoon. Grateful for the opportunity to be able to provide this update. This is a briefing on proposed updates to policies and guidelines governing the city's equal business opportunity programs. So by way of purpose and overview, we're really just seeking to lay out the updates that the Office of Equity and Engagement has been working on for some time now in partnership with other departments and also businesses in the area. So we're going to focus on three main areas. The first thing are City Commission policy updates. So those are proposed revisions to Commission Policy 600-12, 615, and these were last updated in 2018 and 2017 respectively. Next, we will talk about the administrative guidelines, and those are the operational changes to bid discount structures and implementation of procedures and policies. Again, those are related to 612 and 615 as well. And then we'll talk about MLBE certification. And we'll talk about the updates to Policy 0401, which defines micro-local business enterprise criteria. So, the Equal Business Opportunity house analogy was designed really for me, right? So when I moved into that OEE space and began to really learn about this suite of policies and programs, I had questions every time we talked about it. And talked to my team and said, there has to be another way for us to talk about this to make sure that I'm getting it. And then from that, we were able to design something that worked for community. Shout out to the team. Ahmad Hardy spent a lot of time designing this. But we talk about the Equal Business Opportunity Program as a house, right? So there are several rooms in this house. All of these rooms work together to reach our goals for equal business opportunity. I know oftentimes we'll talk about the MLBE program, or we might talk about some of the city commission policies, but the truth is they all work together to make this happen. So they're all under one roof and interconnected. So there's the city commission policies, which are 612 and 615. 612 governs construction, and 615s are related to goods and services. So these are high-level policies, and they must be approved by the City Commission. That's the creation, and changes to them must be approved by City Commission. And then there are administrative guidelines that support those City Commission policies. The administrative guidelines are the detailed procedures or rules for how to implement that City Commission policy. Those guidelines don't have to be approved by Commission. They are under the City Manager's authority. However, because they all are related together, of course, we discuss them together. And then there is Administrative Policy 04-01, which is our MLBE certification. And again, that's an administrative policy, so it's under the City Manager's authority. And there's and when we talk about that 04-01, it governs eligibility for all aspirational MLBEs, and it sets the standards for ownership, location, net worth requirements, and things of that nature. So when we look at this again, we're talking about one house of equal business opportunity programs with separate rooms, and separate rooms that are governed differently. I'm joined today by members of my team, namely Mr. Alvin Hills, who will be taking us through the rest of this presentation, and I will turn it over to him at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Hello, Mayor, Commissioners, and City Manager. Thank you for your time this afternoon. The first portion of this house that we'll focus on is our City Commission Policy 600-12 and 600-15. As Mr. Davis said, when it comes to City Commission Policy, it is the broad framework on how we will implement the broad framework to the programs. And the only proposed changes that we're really pitching here is to align with our MLB certification eligibility, which is in 04-01. So at this point, 04-01 has different language from the City Commission policy, and to be uniform, to be clear to our business community, that is a proposed change that we would like to have the City Commission make, just so all of our policies are in alignment with language. Our next proposed update is to Administrative Policy 04-01. This is under the administrative policy and authority of the city manager. And what we're looking there is to update some language as well as some certification requirements that I'll share more in a further slide. A huge meat and potatoes of our work has really fallen under the administrative guidelines 600-12 and 600-15. In correlation to construction and goods and services, these administrative guidelines govern our bid discount program, partners that are in that bid discount program, percentages of bid discounts. So it's very important that we get these things updated to be more in alignment with community partner, but also language that rolls up to our strategic plan and priorities for the city. We'll focus on the front room of the house, which is our administrative policy or guideline 600-12. The main things that we did with this update here is, again, language refinements, just to ensure that language is brought up to 2025 partnership and strategic plan alignment. We did add 2 new bid discounts. One is for employee-owned businesses with the max percent of 2%, and then also for participants who are in the Friends of Grand Rapids Parks Community Forest Program, we added a 1% discount there for our environmental priorities here at the city. Another area that we updated was our geographic focus. Prior to this update, it was a general target area. That general target area ranges through all wards. And what we noticed over time is some of those wards have been invested in, have developed, and we want to be more in alignment with the neighborhoods of focus and current census tract data. So I know you all are always continuously asked about MLB participation, how we're doing. We do have some challenges, and on this slide, we'll just share a few. Limited capacity of frequently used MLBEs. So in some of the reports that you may have read before, we do have some MLBEs who have matured through the program, and now they are the larger size, and they're doing a lot of the work, but they are limited in capacity. So when we have projects come online and they're at capacity, that does cause sometimes timeline to be pushed out, cost to go up. So we really need to help get some more suppliers in there. But I would like to just highlight that those companies have been legacy companies to our MLB program, and it shows that the intentionality of the program has helped grow them over time. Bonding limitations of emerging businesses. We have launched our internal MLBE bonding pilot program in efforts to help solve that issue there for bonding limitations for some of our smaller firms, as we'll touch on in a later slide. Bridge the gap between MLBE certification and engineering department pre-qualifications. What that means is those are 2 separate processes. When you are certified as an MLBE, that's through the Office of Equity and Engagement. However, the next step for construction-based contractors is being pre-qualified with engineering, and that process can be cumbersome for some small contractors, so we're working to kind of streamline that, make that process more efficient to help get more companies pre-qualified, and then workforce capacity and administrative infrastructure challenges. All right, this is what we're really excited about. Over the years, we've been operating with our bid discount program of a 5% $100,000 cap, and now we would like to propose a 3-year pilot to increase that bid discount cap from a 5% $100,000 mark to a 10% up to $200,000 mark. And eligible categories in the efforts to utilize that 10% increase are really designed towards MLBE subcontractor engagement, mentor protege opportunities. That is when a prime takes on a sub and commits to work with that sub for at least a year's time to help specifically grow their business in a very targeted way. And then also joint venture opportunities for construction firms to partner with MLBEs to receive that additional cap percentage. And throughout the policy or the pilot program, we'll like to collect the data performance of this to see if that increase had led to the outcomes that we're desiring, which is ultimately more MLBE utilization, and also be able to scale up opportunities for capacity for some of these MLBEs.
We're not eliminating any of the other categories.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Just to highlight, we are not eliminating any other of the bid discount categories. You can still use those. However, if you want to get that additional 10%, these are the qualifying or eligible categories to take your bid from a 5% up to a 10% discount. Thank you for that, Mr. Davis. Why did we think about the pilot program? Over the 2024 general contracting data, this is kind of what our team has found. 7 projects, 14% could have flipped to with MLBE involvement. And what that means by flipped, whenever the second bidder is within points of the current low cost and they use MLBE utilization to ultimately become the lowest price, which will move them from second to first. That's what we gauge by or mean by the word flip there. So we noticed that 14% of projects could have flipped with the higher discount percentage. 13 projects were unaffected by the discount level. What we've learned from our contractor community is the bid discount policy was put in place roughly before 2009. Cost of projects have went up. The amount of projects that have happened annually have went up. Inflation has increased. So that 5%, $100,000 isn't as meaningful once you get past the $2 million mark on a project. So if we had the ability to increase the discount, more general contractors, prime contractors would in theory use MLBEs on $2 million projects of $2 million and more. 21 projects, 41% had MLBE potential, but were not utilized. What we've learned on this bullet point was kind of what I shared before was if they would have maxed out their MLBE percentage, it would not have provided a meaningful or competitive discount for them to win the bids. And then the 10 projects, 20% were EBO ineligible. Essentially what that could mean is we may not have contractors in our MLBE program for that specialty trade for those 10 projects or 20% of projects. We are also looking to launch a new growth market, MLBE growth market discount. And on this slide, you'll see that this is for MLBEs that are pre-qualified as a prime contractor, $250,000 or less. So what we're really looking to accomplish here is to grow the supplier base of contractors who are pre-qualified with the city engineering department under $250,000. So as the proposed pilot structure, the once before $25,000 to $75,000 worth of work would have been a 3% discount. With the proposed pilot, it'd be a 6%. So we're really trying to create opportunity for some of the smaller pre-qualified companies in our MLB program to be utilized to grow their capacity to help position them to take on greater work with the city of Grand Rapids. All right, now we're out of that first house, which was all construction. So as this information overload continues, now we're going to shift to another room of the house, which is our 600-15 goods and services / professional services room. Not a ton that we updated here, but we did add 2 new discounts similar to 600-12, which was the employee-owned discount, as well as the Friends of Grand Rapids Parks Urban and Community Forestry Program. Really with this, we wanted to update our language, our general target area be updated from that to neighborhoods of focus, and we didn't have enough data at the moment to really propose a more innovative pilot like we did with the construction program. But however, that is what we are seeking to accomplish after we get this initial update signed off on. We'll like to work alongside our fiscal services team and the new ERP system over the next year to collect data, and that data will really be who are we spending money with and how much of our micro local, small local based companies that we're doing business with. And then after we collect that data, we would like to launch a 2-year pilot on that bid discount end to see if we can increase the utilization of MLBEs in that area of the house as well. So we're looking to collect some data via the rollout of the new ERP, assess that data, and then propose a future pilot to you all at another time. In our final room of the House, our admin policy 04-01. This is our MLBE certification policy. Just wanted to update a few things here. First is our personal net worth cap has increased from the $305,000 to $375,000. Again, this is all adjusted per inflation from the original $250,000 when the policy was written. Moving forward, we'll add language to the policy to factor in inflation, so we wouldn't have to, come back to City Commission for some inflation adjustments. Second is our CPA verification requirement. We wanted to make sure that all personal net worth statements were signed by a licensed CPA. In the policy, it just wasn't written clearly, so we have some folks who submitted net worth statements that didn't align with or wasn't signed off on by a licensed CPA. And per the way that we designed the program to be in alignment with the federal 8A program, they require a licensed CPA, so we added that language there. Lastly, as we talked about MLBEs who have matured through the program and are doing really well, prior to this policy, current state of the policy, we did have the opportunity for extensions to be requested. However, the initial certification policy for MLBEs is 9 years. The extension opportunities are an additional 5 years, so we did want to cap that at 2 extension requests to allow opportunities for new companies to be a part of the program and also share in the opportunities that have been created. This is a robust timeline of kind of where we started in efforts to get to today. So some policy history. We have been working internally since about May to not only propose these or strategize on these changes to the amendments, but also meet with some internal stakeholders ranging from engineering to purchasing, which are the 2 big collaborating departments when it comes to the 600-12 and 600-15 work. Some administrative review via the city manager, and now we're kind of at the point of final approval. And once we do have everything signed off and completed, we'll be doing some comprehensive engagement with the business community to share these updates via our own facilitated opportunities like Monday Group, but also going to stakeholders and getting on their agenda to be able to share the updates to the program and continue to provide EBO education to our partners. And at this moment, we'll love to have any questions that may arise. I know it was a lot of information, and we'll do our best to clear up any questions you may have.
I have a few, but if other people want to go first, that's fine.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I have a couple questions. First of all, thanks for this presentation. It's great to great update on this. Can you just in like 20 seconds or less define like the employee owned business piece? Like, does it require like an ESOP where the employees have like stock ownership? Absolutely.
So employee owned discount will be certified by an external agency that meets all ESOP criteria. We'll take that certification and they'll be granted up to a 2% discount. 1% discount will be for state of Michigan employee owned companies. 2% will be Kent County based.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. The neighborhoods of focus piece. Say I live in a neighborhood of focus, my business isn't in a neighborhood of focus, or vice versa. I guess, would either of those criteria qualify somebody for that?
So for the neighborhoods of focus, in one room of the house, which is our 600-15, the business will need to be located in the neighborhood of focus. However, we also have another bid discount applicable to both sides, which is local workforce. So if you do hire from the neighborhood of focus, even if your business is not in the neighborhood of focus, if your employees live there, you'll be granted additional discounts for local workforce.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm just thinking of I don't know, maybe somebody lives in a neighborhood of focus, but not like that neighborhood of focus might not have, I don't know, just applicable, commercial environments to be able to sustain their operation. So yeah, right. So it could be, I live in a neighborhood of focus, but my business maybe is in Walker because that's where they have an industrial park that's conducive to my type of business. So just wanted to make sure those situations were accommodated. And then the CPA certification piece, I know that's something that I've heard some feedback on. I think it's, important to get buy-in from people who want to take part in this program, and that's an important piece of it. But I guess, what is the cost of that typically look like? And is that something where, if I'm under a certain income threshold, I can apply to get, a waiver from the city to fund that certification if I know?
No, that's a great question, Commissioner. Several years ago, we helped remove that barrier through a partnership with Hawkins CPA. So essentially, the city, via one of our grants, underwrites $500 worth of
Okay.
CPA support. That was a huge barrier. A lot of small companies don't have a CPA. So we were able to partner up. They go directly to Hawkins CPA. He's familiar with the AA standards and the formula. We don't receive any personal net worth information from those companies. He simply puts on letterhead that they are under our designated threshold.
Okay, great. 'Cause I know it's, obviously a little bit of a financial risk for some small businesses if I'm not guaranteed necessarily business with the city,
Yeah.
but if that's a requirement to be eligible, how we can kind of help bridge that gap if possible. And then I guess my last question, so you mentioned the small utilization rate or I guess high utilization rate amongst a small group of MLBE contractors. I know we set, sometimes some aggressive goals with developers to utilize MLBE contracts, but like in the event that, that small group is already overwhelmed with projects, I guess how do we reconcile like showing that, developers are doing their due diligence to say like, we want to do this, but at the end of the day, if this project, if the people that we can, or who might be eligible to be a subcontractor of ours are just already overwhelmed with projects, like of course we would want to, continue moving forward our housing goals. So I guess maybe that's less of a question and more of a comment of like, just how do we make sure we're, showing the good due diligence of our developers in the community to involve small businesses locally, but also not have that become a bottleneck such that we can't move forward with projects just because they can't find the right people.
So one thing we like to see is a common issue that we deal with, is at least the pre-solicitation efforts of who they did reach out to and kind of the responses per contractor. And we work very closely with these contractors. So understanding capacity is something that we regularly kind of check in on, especially for some of the transformational projects in community that we have a trade represented. Our office is kind of the first step to say, hey, are you aware of this project? How does your capacity look? And so we kind of try to keep as best of a pulse on that type of issue, but it is a challenge, which is why we're doing what we can to help increase the supplier side of it to help grow some existing firms to be able to take on more.
Okay. Yeah,
opportunities.
that's good because I think to your point, some of the more transformational projects, like there's very specialized vendors that are required, and like we might not have anybody in our community who does.
Yeah, like removing dams out the river.
Right, or like
that's-
stadium seating, like just very niche things that a small business isn't necessarily equipped to provide or is in the business to provide. But I just want to make sure that when developers are doing those kinds of projects, we're still it's not to their detriment that they're not able to find contractors that can provide those services, and we're still showing to the public and to the commission that they're doing their due diligence to find those contractors anyways, even if they don't exist at this point. So again, probably more of a thought than a question, but just kind of wanted to make sure that was stated. So, but appreciate the information.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Knight?
Yes, and thank you, Commissioner, because you actually asked a couple of the questions that I had on there, especially when it came to the CPA piece. And then also the accountability of businesses. So when we talk about the ones that, like saying that they may be flipped or unaffected by the discounts or not utilized at all, how do we track to make sure that businesses, like that they really are doing that outreach that's necessary to say that they're trying to contract with other businesses? And then when you talk about the opportunity, and I think it was on slide 10, maybe, I wrote 10 on there, but I think it's different on here. The joint venture partnership or the mentor protege agreement participation, how do we track that? And I say that because, like, I know of some business that have contracted with particular MLBEs to do work with them, but are they getting a discount under this particular category, but aren't really doing the due diligence on the other side. Like, they're not really doing any mentoring, they're just using them as that, and that company may not know that, right? They may not know that this stuff is something that's available for them. So how do we?
So Commissioner Knight, any mentor protege agreement, joint venture agreement has to be signed off on our office.
Okay.
And then we provide an approval letter once the criteria is met. So I think what may be going on is some informal and direct mentor protege opportunities. However, when it comes to city bidding, that is all approved in our office. So where that process looks like we need records of the agreement, which has to have happened for a year prior to receiving the discount. And then at that time, we also meet with the subcontractor or the mentee to ensure what was provided from a general contractor or a prime is actually what's happened, and they both sign off on that agreement.
Nice, okay, and that's on both sides, like both sides get,
That's for city bidding through our EBO program is where we provide the approval letter for that agreement.
so if they don't go through that program, then we don't really know, but
Yeah.
the prime could still get, not necessarily through this.
They wouldn't receive any discount unless we approve it for the mentor protege piece.
But if it's not under the mentor protege piece, and they just say that they're using MLBE
Yeah.
for this particular piece,
Yeah.
then they don't necessarily have to do that.
Correct.
Okay,
No problem.
thank you.
So, three questions here, quickly. One is, I assume that we want to incentivize employee-owned businesses for reasons that I can guess, but those seem to me to closely align with union questions. So, given that we have, dominantly union employees for the city itself, is there any thought about offering a discount to companies that are unionized?
So I would say right now we have not explored the unionized, but I think that's something that we could definitely take back to the table too.
I mean, it seems to me that aligns essentially very closely with employee-owned. The idea is to give workers stronger representation. That's what unions are for. And so, we've got them for everybody who works for the city, essentially. We've got, 75 non-represented employees out of
Absolutely.
about 3,000. So I'd love it if you could do a little thinking about that, and maybe we could have a continued conversation. Next, and this is following up on what Commissioner Robbins said, if you could get me the form that people are using for the net worth analysis, I'd appreciate it. Because, go ahead.
So I could get you the language that we use, the AA, oops, I'm sorry, I think I just, I could get you the language that we use that details the formula, but it's going to speak back directly to that federal AA program, so I'll get you there.
Yeah, so, for example, net worth is what things do you own and how much are they worth. So if there are major exclusions in there for things like your home, then it's not really
That
your
is
net
it.
worth, but it's, then we're maybe using the wrong word, because homes have worth. But my concern there was, if we were, for example, including homes in net worth and our housing market has gotten much more valuable, then tracking inflation might not be a sufficient way to keep up with those net worth criteria. So I think we might want to, given what's happened with real estate in town, look at, because a lot of small contractors are fairly frugal people who pay down their debts. Maybe they own one rental property. That might put them out of participation here, right?
So rental properties are considered under
Exactly.
the net worth, but your personal home would not be.
Right, so if you live in a duplex and you rent out half of it, and all of a sudden it turns out that that's worth $300,000 and you're ineligible for the program just because you live in a duplex. Also, I don't know, I'd like to see whether, again, I've got money in retirement accounts. The city's putting money to retirement accounts for me. It's really my money, and it's really part of my net worth. But if that got counted, then you might have, a school teacher who wants to get into being a contractor who's got a pension that puts them out of participation. So I'd like to look at the form
Absolutely.
and
We'll
look at
get the
those
language
details. Finally, I think that when you were talking about your requests for altering the program, I see the shift in size of projects making sense. I'll just say that I'm concerned about increasing the percentage of bids. The reason that is a concern for me is I do not want to get into retaliatory situations with other. I mean, we live in a region, and if Walker said, "Fine, you're gonna give huge discounts to people that live in the city of Grand Rapids for doing city work," we'll have such huge discounts that only people who live in Walker get Walker work. Well, I don't know any contractor who only works inside of a given municipality, so I don't want to get into retaliatory dynamics. And when a 5% bid commission probably doesn't give Walker heartburn or Kentwood heartburn or the city of Lansing heartburn. But, if we gave 50% discounts, maybe Lansing would be like, well, the heck with that. We'll give 50% discounts to our own people. Then we're essentially doing tariffs by another name.
So what I'll say to that, Mayor, is the bid discount program is open to any business across the nation. It's not City of Grand Rapids specific, Kent County, State of Michigan. So if a company in Detroit wanted to utilize our bid discount program, based upon what we have available, they might not be able to fit all things. But one thing they can for certain do is use the MLBE utilization. So they could be a company from outside of the City of Grand Rapids who utilizes the MLBEs on the list.
Yeah, but the L stands for local, right? So, I mean,
Well,
it is a program to try to stimulate local businesses. There's no getting around that. That's what it's built
it's
to
also
do.
Kent County based for our MLBE program.
I understand. You can get out of Kent County in 6 minutes in a decent car. So I'm concerned that we don't get ourselves into essentially trade wars with other regions.
Mayor, because this is, what policy would that be covered under, AJ?
For the bid discount program, the pilot,
Which one is that?
it'd be administrative guidelines,
That's what I thought.
600.
Okay, so I want to be clear on this. So I think I understand what you're saying, Mayor, but I want to go back and make sure that we understand the intended impact. I think you're talking about unintended. We're trying to have more tools to create opportunities for local and minority-owned businesses. And what the staff is doing, bring forward, I think we had I don't want to call out the company, but I know that there was one that had, now I'm struggling to do it without calling out the company, but there was a case that we looked at that had we had more broader guidelines, this one employer would not have gotten recertified, would have gotten a bid. And I just want to make sure that what we're doing, and I understand what you're saying, Mayor, in terms of causing some reaction from other cities. If they do it, I think that would be good. They would create economic opportunity. But if I can get them here, get that business in our city, in our county, why wouldn't we want to have an attractive incentive program to have businesses come and invest in our community?
Well, because economically, it's exactly like tariffs. That's all the arguments for saying, well, let's have a 50% discount for American goods, and let's not buy anything from Canada or Korea. You can say that, but the problem is that overall, economically, those tend to not be good ideas. Now, small incentives for local people probably don't break the system, but if they were talking about doubling the size of a bid discount, and 10% is substantial. And so that's what I'm concerned about, not participation criteria. In fact, I think that increasing eligibility, making sure that that's easier and more streamlined, and, maybe we don't need CPA certification and all those things. Those are eligibility requirements. What I'm concerned about is if you up the bid discount percentage, there's a point at which that's going to create negative externalities, just like, a 2% tariff on Japan doesn't stop people buying Toyotas. A 50% tariff does. And then Japan says, well, fine, then we'll just put a 50% tariff on American goods. So if what we do is we get in a war where our contractors functionally can't get jobs in Lansing, I don't think that's the end game we want, because if we want these folks to grow, you're going to grow, they're going to have to almost necessarily going to want to be looking at jobs outside of the city limits and probably out of Kent County. So I don't want to create a program which actually is a stumbling block for helping these folks grow.
Just wanted to point back to the categories where we're talking about increasing the eligibility and define what those categories are. Because we're not talking about the categories that would talk about residency or things of that nature. AJ, can you talk us through just these 4 categories again and exactly what they are? Because these are the only 4 categories that we're proposing increasing from its current state to an additional percentage.
Absolutely.
Let me, before you start, AJ, let me just, so if I can understand this, try to get this in more layman's terms, that this increase will go towards say a GC helping let's just say DV Apple Logistics, scale up their business and have more opportunity to go out and do the work and show the capability that I have that allows my business then, when another bid comes in, to be able to bid on a higher project, right? Because I've proven now that I have some capability in this space.
Yeah.
So I see it as more of a competitive opportunity for smaller business to begin to scale up and stop eating the crumbs and actually be at the table with the larger GCs as opposed to weeding people out.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And back to the pilot, again, the eligible categories: MLB subcontractor utilization, which you just touched on, Commissioner. MLBE growth contractor, those are the subcontractors pre-qualify under $250,000. Mentor proteges agreements, those are broad-based, but companies that are in our MLBE program. And then the joint venture with the MLBE partner, those are the qualifying discounts that any contractor, general contractor, prime can apply for. And then I'll just go back to kind of what brought us here was folks weren't using MLBEs on projects over $2 million. And what we learned was the dollar amount for the cost of bid based upon the discount that they would get, they started to not even, go after MLBE participation. So our thought is that once we have something that's more meaningful, especially for larger projects between 2 to 4 million, they'll go back to utilizing those MLBEs so they can get that discount and be competitive.
Throw this back out. Maybe that's not the question to ask. You obviously have talked to a number of the larger GCs in this community to really gauge what they're, because I've seen it myself, right? And then, so what we're going to do is with the lower amount, if that's not really doing anything to a $17 or $20 million project, then what's the purpose? I know who I can get to do this job, but if we're trying to bridge that gap and provide more opportunity for minority businesses in our community, then we got to up the ante a little bit.
And what I will say to that, Commissioner, is we did take these revisions by Monday Group. Mayor, Commissioner Robbins, Monday Group is a conglomerate of other public entities, general contractors, developers, subcontractors, and that was the feedback that we received through there to help put a strategy together and come before you today. So we did take this out to business community, in particular that conglomerate of folks who are familiar with our program but also bid on our projects regularly. Thank you.
An update on the development center.
All right, thank you, Commissioners, Mayor, and
Gave us
City
lots
Manager.
of charts and graphs.
Lots of charts, a lot of data. Don't see that in the PDF here. Do you have them in front of you at least?
Yep.
All right, very good. So yes, Development Center added another 14 million about to our construction value for the calendar year. So we are still seeing growth in that area. We are seeing a slight decline from last year in the number of applications we received last month, just comparing August to August in the past 2 years. So we are kind of keeping our eyes on that. That's a little earlier. Typically, we see that kind of come down around November through the holiday season. Plan review timelines stay fairly consistent with what we reported out on last month. Not a lot of changes in that area. And focusing in on inspection services, we are still at about 1 to 2 working days for building and plumbing inspection delays, which is right on target.
Mr. Overman, can you
Yeah.
bring your presentation on the screen?
It doesn't seem to be in.
Page 109 in the packet. I just found it. Right towards the end.
I apologize, I'm not
Yeah, you-
seeing it
Yeah.
preloaded here.
Okay, that's okay, go right ahead.
Let me see if I can get the full agenda packet here. Here we go. My apologies for that. Yes, so as I was saying, plan review timelines are fairly consistent with what we reported out at last month. 40 days for residential building permits, 75 days for commercial permits, and 40 days for land use development permits. On the inspection services side, we are still seeing a delay in both our mechanical and electrical inspections at about 9 working days to get an inspection scheduled. However, we are seeing some good news on the forefront with that, with some of the approved changes in our compensation for our electrical inspectors. We have secured 2 out of the 3 vacancies. We were able to fill those positions. Both those candidates are starting later this month, and look forward to getting them trained and onboarded to help reduce that delay. And with that, I can open it up to any questions that you all may have. Yeah.
Yeah, one question would be, and this is just, I think, whenever I see a graph, I always try to think about whether it's the best way to show something. And I'm missing didn't you have a graph for money, construction starts by ward?
Yes, on, I think it's on page 111 of this packet. We do break it down in a chart, construction value by ward, split by whether it's in the DDA or not the DDA.
Great. That was exactly my question. So we've got first and second ward outside of the DDA compared with third ward, which is all outside the DDA. So
Yep.
first and second ward outside the DDA seems to be much lower than third ward investment at this point.
Correct.
Gotcha. So it looks like really underinvestment in the second ward if we were looking for a ward that's not being invested in. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Oberman, Mayor, I want to go back to that report about electrical inspections, as that's been something that you talked about earlier, and our planning director's been very forthcoming in asking for support, both contract as well as salary changes to the Civil Service Commission. And so the 9-day, remind me what the benchmark is for the,
So typically, we like to be at about 3 days, so that an inspection service, especially when it comes to electrical for power-ups.
so at our height, when we were behind, how many days was it? At
About 3 weeks.
3 weeks. And so this is a significant improvement for where we were, not ideal, but you, with the 2 coming on board, we should be able to narrow that 9-day turnaround down even more.
Exactly, yeah. That's,
The other question I had, and I guess this is one part of our organization saying something that it seems in tension with, it seems to me like a meeting doesn't go by when we're not at some step of approval for some fairly big housing investment. I'm kind of surprised to see, your data is that we've only got 346 new units of housing in the entire year so far, and only 500 last year. It's really that low.
So that
I feel like we-
measures new units, so those are units added to the overall capacity, not renovations and things along those lines. So there are other units being developed in the city, but these are particularly like new units added to the overall
These are
capacity.
completed.
Say that again, sorry.
Completed?
These are issued permits. for
Like
them.
occupancy permits have been issued?
So not occupancy, but the permits have been approved for construction.
Okay.
At this
Boy, I feel like in a busy meeting, we approved more than 537 new units. So I don't quite know how to make sense of that, but that's my problem, not yours. So thanks, yeah.
I think that was where my question was, kinda. just in 20, I mean, we know a lot has happened between 2023 and 2025, so just trying to figure out, it does seem like, well, I guess if you say project, units, housing units and projects, is it like, we passed the one at Breton Meadows, that's
Yeah.
a project,
That's a couple hundred
but does it
units.
count all the units?
It will count all the units once the building permit
Once
is
it's done?
issued.
So they're not even in this number,
Correct.
really, right
Right.
now?
Not yet.
Okay, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, so that would be, I think, maybe for Ms. Behrens at some other point, would be like, what's our basket of things that haven't hit this number yet? And how big is that basket? Because that's, well, okay, if you've got some rough ideas for us now, that'd be awesome.
Well, we are considering some additional kind of monthly or quarterly reports that we would add to this that would hit on some of the activities and accumulate the stats that are coming out of the various authorities. We haven't hit on the right secret sauce that is both informative and capable of being gathered and reported out on efficiently, but that's our intent for rounding out a little bit more the activities in economic development coming out of some of those other authorities. So more to come on that.
Yeah,
as we
because I do think,
draft
like,
something up.
for example, the Three Towers project, that alone would be 900 units. I get that, maybe they haven't pulled a building permit yet, but we could have a category of things the city's taken action on. And understanding, maybe only 75% of them get to fruition, they lose their financing, whatever. But, I could list 3 or 4 projects offhand that we've already taken our commission's taken some form of action on, whether it was a public hearing or whatever. So, the 375 or whatever it is a number you've got a pretty high level of certainty they're going to happen. Like probably 90% plus of those are going to get to the finish line. Not 100% because those aren't occupancy permits, but there's that what's in the pipeline question, which every single one of us has constituents wants to know all the time, as we said, we need 13,000 new units. And if I know some people, if they get that 300 unit number, will be like, look, we need 13,000 in the next 3 years, and we're at 3%, 2% of that or something, right? So taking that number out of context would make it look like all of the stuff that we've been working really hard to get to the finish line. And what you do when you get up in the morning, Ms. Behrens, like that's not captured at all in this work, or all the work the city manager's done. Like there's a lot of like getting things in the pipeline work that it'd be good for. I'm just thinking in terms of publicity. We all know it, but like getting that information out into the public.
We have this conversation every year or twice a year when we do our mid-year and annual performance metric update in trying to reconcile how many projects have been approved versus those that have been permitted. And I think we'll take another stab at that when we update in November.
Awesome.
We can have both kind of the technical report, but the more holistic strategically, what do we have in the hopper?
Yep, great. Thanks. Commissioner Robbins.
Yeah, one quick question. Well, I guess a follow-up comment. So if you look at this enforcement level count, I almost feel like that funnel put through graphic is kind of what we're asking for, like a top level to trickle down what actually happens, which might even be useful to figure out kind of where the bottlenecks are at. But just kind of seeing that, I think almost sort of sums up what we're looking for, is like what's in the works versus what is actualized. And then super quick question. So I know you all have done a ton of really good work in the development review timeliness and have really improved a lot of those metrics just based on some feedback from the community. So I'm just curious if you've heard any other feedback from developers, or if there's a way to compare, our metrics versus other, municipalities of similar size, just to kind of sell. Because I know it's a super positive story in seeing these numbers. So just trying to figure out a way that we can publicize that and show that, we've done a lot of really good work to make sure that Grand Rapids is one of the easiest places to do business in the Midwest. And so just I don't want to miss that opportunity to sell that story. So
I'd be happy to collect some information, kind of show our progression over the last few quarters, and see if I can find some data from other municipalities to kind of compare that to.
yeah, just a thought. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
My last question, that was one that was the first one, but it just wasn't coming out. So you said that the number of projects that have been coming in for application have kind of gone down?
Yep, so what I kind of look at each month is this applications received by month. And we can see, like, for most of 2025, we've stayed fairly consistent. September drops down to 0 just because of when the report was ran. Day one, we don't have any come in yet. But we are just seeing that kind of slope down a little
Yeah,
bit.
I mean, that looked like it
Right.
went straight off.
We should,
Doesn't report great, but
let's strike the September report from the
Yeah.
record. This is the interim
I was
report.
like, man, we're
No.
done?
Let's amend
I
that
was
one.
gonna ask, well, what was happened? But
Wyoming took us over.
Is it normal for, I mean, obviously in the winter months, when you start getting into the colder months, I know construction kind of slows down a little bit. But do you foresee, as you think about the projects that are happening across the city, in the city proper, those numbers continuing to kind of dwindle a little bit, or opportunity for?
So there's a lot of really good, big projects coming up that we anticipate that will keep development strong throughout the city. We don't see any real indicators of it slowing down dramatically. This does include, all sorts of different things from, roofing, hot water heater replacements, furnaces, all that kind of stuff. And so it may just be that it's just kind of a downturn for the month, and some of those smaller projects may kind of peel off a little bit, but we still see a lot of good development coming up in the future.
I do have one more question, and maybe this is something for our city manager to think about going forward, and this is very much an if-then thing. Last year, we had 8 applications for accessory dwelling units. We had 5 times that many people show up for a boot camp a couple weeks ago. If we're successful in generating interest there, I think what we're going to get is a new type of applicant who's a lot less sophisticated. I mean, when Rockford Construction comes in and you tell them they need to get their plumbing inspected, they don't say, "What do you mean, get my plumbing inspected?" What do you mean I had to leave the walls open before I could, right? So there are lots of ways where I think first-time applicants, you could seal your walls and not knowing that you had to have an electrical final before you sealed your walls, right? So I know we've got some folks over at 1120 who are sort of becoming the de facto ADU specialists, but I'm wondering if the demand grows, maybe we want to have a separate stream for, and I don't want to say under-sophisticated, but something like first time. And, and also, like, I'm hoping that our MLBE folks are going to be great, our emerging developers. These are great candidate projects for them because they're not that big. They're digestible projects. Well, again, those folks might need a little more, they might need training wheels getting through the process and a little more coaching and a little more coaching and less, you did this wrong.
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is keep an eye on that if you would, and if you need the resources, please, let's have that conversation.
Absolutely. Yep,
Well, we do have an ombuds program
correct.
that we have, and we started that 5 years or so ago.
Yep.
But it's only one person right now that's in part, or have other
Correct.
staff been
It's
part?
one ombudsperson, but our staff, really is, our goal is to be coaches in our building code. And, I think every staff kind of carries that customer service level with them to try to bring them to that without having to go to that enforcement level. So.
Yeah. But you bring up a good point. So we'll go back, particularly as we are preparing this budget on both the inspection side and permitting side in the planning department, but also looking at resources in our engineering department as well, and see what, we've had this conversation maybe a couple of years ago to make sure that we're keeping up with demand, and it's probably a good opportunity to go back and review that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for the overview. Okay, we're done, and we have 36 minutes of spare time. Thanks, everybody.